What's going on, guys? Welcome to a special New Year's Eve edition of the Gaelic Gridiron podcast. Delighted to be joined by my partner in crime, Gaelic Gridiron's NFL in-house expert, Mr. Stephen Twist Kearns. Twist, how are you, man? How was the Christmas?
Good, Jimmy, good. I'm excited to be doing this. Christmas was busy. Um, that's what happens when you have a little one. Everyone wants to see him, hold him, squish him, so you gotta go everywhere and be everywhere. So finally, get ready to sit down and watch some football this evening. Spend
I
the evening
can't
watching
believe it's
football.
taken us. I can't believe it's taken us this long to actually do a podcast together. This is well overdue, and we're going to take a look today at. I suppose. It's week 17 of the NFL. Like it's the penultimate week of the season. It's New Year's Eve. Like there's a massive slate of football on. I love the angry T-shirt you have on. By the way,
As
representing.
represent as represents Jalen Warren, like me and you have been behind Jalen Warren for forever at this stage. And once he won the Angry Runs award, and they start selling the T-shirt, I'm like, me, anything Steelers logo related, I have to buy it.
And we'll definitely talk about the Steelers later on. Like I said, like it's week 17 of the NFL. There's only one more week of the regular season left after tonight. Some massive games with some massive playoff implications going on. I mean, as we head in, and we're recording obviously on Sunday. Hopefully, this will go out before the games actually happen. That depends on how long it takes me to edit and get it out there. Um, I mean, like, what game aside from the Steelers Seahawks later on are you looking forward to the most?
And it's got to be Ravens Dolphins. Like that's has the biggest impact on the AFC, especially the playoff picture. Dolphins are 11-4, Ravens are 12-3. Baltimore wants to win this. Obviously, they want to make the road to the Super Bowl for the AFC go through, them. And Miami obviously wants to, push themselves up the seeding. That'll be the game of probably the game of the week. Looking at the schedule there, and one of the bar last night, one of the ones which have the biggest playoff implications. So like the Cowboys Lions last night had huge playoff implications. Um, the Niners Commanders, like, it should be a cakewalk for the Niners. Jacoby Brissett was supposed to start, somehow was benched, and he injured his hamstring. He's on IR now, so it might be Howell is starting. They did activate another QB. I can't remember his name during the week. He might take the reins. But other than that, like the other games to watch in regards to like seeding, like the Bills, the Colts, the Texans, and the tumbling Jags. Like the
Yeah.
Jags, since there's the old adage of this disrespecting the terrible tale. Since they disrespected the terrible tale, like they've fallen from grace. Like they were such a hot team,
Yeah.
and they're going up against 2-13 Panthers. That should be a cakewalk. And Trevor Lawrence is out, so they don't have him starting. And Panthers are scrappy, so
I suppose like the AFC, I mean, apart from obviously the Dolphins, the Ravens, I mean, you also have the Bengals and the Browns who are currently in playoff position. But apart from that, like it's still all to play for, really, isn't it?
yeah, it's when you look at it, it's ridiculous. Like you look at the AFC, only three teams have clinched a spot: the Browns, the Dolphins, the Ravens. NFC, you've got four. You've got 49ers, Eagles, and Lions and Cowboys. Other than that, there are still right now in the hunt, like who are actually like the other seeds are like Chiefs, Jags, Bills, Colts, Bucks, Rams, Seahawks. They all are still clinging to playoff spot. Um, and then you look at the guys who are on the bubble. There are 10 teams still who
Yeah.
have a shot. Like it's when you look at it, week 17, 10 teams still have a chance to like now. Some of those percentages are like 13%, 7%, like 1%, but they're not eliminated.
Yeah. Like for how late it is in the season, like it really is surprising to see so many teams still be in playoff contention.
Yeah, that's the like what. As long as I've watched NFL, I don't remember now. I could be wrong. I don't remember this many teams being still in playoff contention, and like the AFC is still, if you will, the front runner. They're still the hardest conference to get a clinch in or a playoff spot in. And if things pan out, you could see, like depending how things fall, you could see, as everyone expected, three AFC North teams in the playoffs. And the Browns have already secured their trip to the playoff thanks to a resurgent Joe Flacco.
Yeah,
And
and
nobody knew that.
we'll talk about Joe Flacco later on as well. That has to be the biggest, I think, the biggest surprise of this season is how, well, first of all, that Joe Flacco is still playing football, and
Yeah,
secondly, like how good he has been. I mean, I think he's thrown for 1,600 over 1,600 yards. I mean, 13 touchdowns against 8 interceptions. He really has like brought the Browns back from the brink this season.
he has. And I mean, the other weird, funny or weird, whichever way you look at it, stat is he is currently 37 yards passing from passing Johnny Manziel on the Browns passing yards already. He's only 600 and I think 606 yards away from passing Deshaun Watson as pass like one of the all-time passers on the Browns passing chart already. And he's gone from being a backup in the Jets to sitting on his couch to bringing the Browns their third
Yeah,
playoff berth in a century.
yeah, it's insane. But like you look at the AFC, I mean, I don't think at the start of the season anyone could really have predicted that. Well, first of all, that the Chiefs, I mean, last year's AFC champions would struggle so much. I mean, really, really struggled. I think they're 8-5 at the minute, something like that.
Yeah, they're
Well,
9-6
there
as
you
of
go. Yeah, nine
today.
and
Yeah,
six. But like, I mean,
yeah,
no one could have really predicted that they would have had this a harder time in battling. And I certainly didn't have the Ravens being in such a strong position at the start of the season, like where they are now. Ultimately, probably going to win out and become AFC champions.
yeah. This, you know, I can see bar a total collapse in the playoffs, the Ravens will probably win the Super Bowl
Yeah,
the way they're playing. Their defense is on fire. They do have, you know, some, situations where they do almost like they play the mentality bend don't break. There is a couple of times where they do break and they do let teams back in. But when you have someone like Lamar Jackson on the other side of the ball, who like the original joke was like he's just a running back. You can't really call him running back anymore.
no,
He's a former MVP. He does have the ability to extend plays ridiculously, but he's also become a more prolific passer, and he does still extend plays, but like not as much as he used to. You won't see him like scrambling constantly, like the ball won't snap unless it's a designed run. He doesn't do that anymore. He stands in the pocket, he scans for his receivers. When he has guys like Odell Beckham and Zay Flowers, like why wouldn't you like
yeah.
scan the field? And there's a chance that Mark Andrews will be back in time for the playoffs as well. And if he's back, that offense is going to be difficult.
So I suppose Joe Flacco's resurgence aside, what has been the apart from that, what's been the most kind of surprising thing for you this season?
Um, there's been a couple things like I say the wishy washiness of the Dolphins to start. Like they started off super red hot, and then they went through a stretch of like going really really like cold, lukewarm, and then they resurged again. That is not something like now they've obviously curtailed that a bit, but that's not something you want to see your team going through the season because that if that happens in the playoffs, it's literally one and done. And you mentioned it earlier, the Chiefs. You have Pat Mahomes, like generational quarterback. Their receivers can't catch a cold.
Yeah.
That's his biggest problem. You can see him frustrated on the sideline. The guys are dropping surefire touchdowns. There's like Travis Kelsey is like teams have now figured out that the receivers are struggling to catch balls, I should say. So they're doubling like Kelsey. They're taking him out of the play, and once you take him out of the play, you're relying on the other guys to catch the ball, and they're just not stepping up. Um, and then let's say until he was benched, the Broncos were like they came back from like 2-5
Yeah.
to like playoff contention. Um, and then that whole benching situation with Russell Wilson, like he came
Mental.
out and spoke about
Absolutely.
it.
Like it's absolutely mental. Like
Your team is like in a chance for winning the playoffs, and you
you put
bench
in
him,
Jared Stidham as your starting quarterback.
which is funny because the same benching situation happened to Derek Carr last season, and
Yeah.
Stidham took over for that. So I don't know whether he's a good luck charm or bad luck charm, but if he joins your team, your days are numbered by the sounds of things. But Wilson's a class act. The way he spoke to the media, explained the situation. His time in Denver is probably done. So the question is, where does he end up next year?
Where's the gap? Where's the quarterback demand? Hopefully, it won't be Pittsburgh anyway.
Patriots, Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, unless they draft a quarterback in the draft, he's probably Patriot bound.
I think the most surprising storyline for me so far has been how good the Lions are.
Yes,
Apart from the, obviously disappointing loss to the Cowboys last night. I mean, they're on track for their first playoff season in over 30 years. Um, Possibly even a dark horse for the NFC Championship game. I mean, I think a Lions Niners NFC Championship game is definitely not beyond the realms of possibility at this stage.
definitely. I mean, they won their first division title in 30 years. They went out and they looked in a heartbreaking loss to the Cowboys last night, 20-19, um, with a crazy ending. They're 11-5. They're tied with the Cowboys 11-5 at the moment. Um, they absolutely could push for the championship. If not even all the way. Like they just need stuff to fall their way. Now they do have a bit of a tendency to over rely on screens. The Cowboys were all over that last night. They even intercepted the screen pass with a phenomenal interception. I can't remember who did it, but he just pulled that ball straight out of the air before he reached the player. They do telegraph screens quite a bit. That could be one of their weaknesses, but their defense is playing really well. Like Hutchinson is he's out there pushing guys around like they're kids.
Yeah,
He's not to trifle with. And you look at the NFC, it's the 49ers and Eagles tied at 11-4, and then the Lions and Cowboys tied at 11-5. Like the NFC Championship is literally anybody's at this stage. They're the
yeah,
four big, they're the ones to beat. You look at the fourth, sixth, and seventh seed. It's Bucks, Rams, and Seahawks.
yeah. Not really going to pose much of
They,
a threat there.
the only way they'd pose a threat is Rams will probably be the biggest dark horse in all of
Hmm.
them. But you have to everything would have to fall the right way for that to work. But I wouldn't be surprised um, to see a rematch between the Cowboys and the Lions at some point in the playoffs,
Yeah,
if not even for the championship.
I mean, especially after Brock Purdy's recent performance. I think it was against the Raiders where he threw four
Ravens.
interceptions and I mean a couple of those they weren't his fault. Maybe they were tipped, but it just goes to show you that it comes down to any given Sunday. And I mean, Brock Purdy has been the golden boy in San Francisco, and it just shows you can't predict what's going to happen.
You can't, and when you heat before, when he's rolling into that game against the Ravens, everyone was like, "Oh, he's the MVP. He's the MVP." And then he threw 3 or 4 interceptions, and suddenly that MVP talk has gone, except for from diehard 49ers fans. And if anyone on that team could be considered MVP, it's Christian McCaffrey. He is the engine of that team. He takes that pressure off Brock Purdy. You have to respect. You have to fill the box because if CMC breaks loose, if you ignore him, you're going to lose the game every time. And the Eagles, they're looking. They had a bit of a tumble and a stumble. Hurts. I don't know whether he's still hurt or not, but he hasn't been playing his best either.
Yeah,
Um, and like I said, back to the Lions and Cowboys, they held the Cowboys to 20 points. They were all over. CeeDee Lamb had a phenomenal game. He started off slow, but he had over 150 yards receiving. Um, but he they held him in check for quite a while. Um, and then you're looking at those guys who have all clinched. It's now down to can, with 2 games left in the season, can those who currently have a seed hold on to it. The low hanging fruit would be the Jags and the Colts, and the Seahawks on the other side. Possibly the Buccaneers because they're in the worst division of football, the NFC South once again. Everyone is not. I wouldn't say awful, but the standings in the NFC South, they're
pretty grim.
yeah, it's 8-7, 7-8, 7-8, and 2-13. It's literally anybody's. It's going to come down to tiebreakers of anything.
So at this stage, I mean, forget about the wild card round for a second. Who are your picks for the divisional round and ultimately the championship games?
Oh, so I'd say so. I mean, divisional round, the Chiefs are going to get to the divisional round. There's just something about Pat Holmes, um, you know, when he's in the playoffs. I'd say he'd get to the divisional round. I think the Browns are going to the divisional. Like, unless you can slow down Flacco and that defense, I wouldn't be surprised if they go to the divisional round. To be honest, I as much as it pains me to say, I wouldn't be surprised if the championship for AFC is Ravens Browns.
Ravens Browns.
Yeah,
That's a bold call.
yeah. Just like unless Joe Flacco has a complete meltdown, like for the rest of the last two games, um, you know, I don't think he can be stopped. Like there's too many weapons on that offense. Like David Njoku just runs riot over everybody.
And he's become Flacco's favorite target as well.
Yeah, and like you look at they were like, oh, our running game's gone to Chubb. Ford stepped up. Ford is like taking Chubb's role and literally ran with
Yeah.
it. And you have to give some respect to the Browns defense. They are quite stingy. You've got Denzel Ward, you've got Miles Garrett, you've got Smith on the other side, and you have a formidable defense. Um, so yeah, I'd probably foresee Ravens Browns AFC Championship game. Um, NFC Championship game, I think it's going to be Lions, and it's either going to be 49ers Cowboys.
I think this is the Lions' year, honestly. I think Dan Campbell has done such a fantastic job up there in Detroit. I mean, they were one of the worst franchises in the NFL for years, and now they're one of the best in the NFC. And he just has a way of inspiring his players, I think. And but then you look at the highly, highly questionable decision last night to go for two, three times.
Yeah,
And the obvious decision there is if you don't get it once, okay, you might try it again. But after the second attempt, why not just kick the field goal and go to overtime?
like that mentality. I think it's he was being a slave to the analytics. Like
Mm,
the analytics, right? Go for two, go for two, go for two. And I mean, as it like on the Lions defense, you're sitting there watching them go for two or three times. Like, do you like? Does he not have faith in us to be able to stop the Cowboys? Now they couldn't really stop CeeDee Lamb, but in overtime, just hold them to a field goal and then go down and score a touchdown. Like, they were playing that well. Um, but yeah, I do believe the Lions are going to go a lot further than people give them credit for. And if you want to go like dark horse like teams, for the NFC, the dark horse team is the Rams. I wouldn't be surprised if they cause an upset in the wild card, just because like the way they're playing, like you got Cooper Cup, you got Puka
yeah.
Nakua, like try and stop those two on any given Sunday is difficult enough. Um, and then the Bills, I wouldn't say that they're a dark horse. They were expected to win like at all.
And they've had a very up and down season as well in the AFC.
Yeah, but they're surging at the moment. And like if they get in, I think the Texans, if they get into the wild cards, the Texans could cause a bit of trouble. They're 8th seed at the moment, um, so they're one out of the playoffs. And they're third in the AFC South. The Colts are ahead of them. They need to win out. If they win, they have a 53% chance of getting into the playoffs.
I think I suppose one of the other really interesting things this season for me has been the emergence of so many backup quarterbacks. And I suppose the relative success they've had. I mean, you look, Aaron Rodgers, week one tore his Achilles, and that's a whole different podcast on playing surfaces. But like you look at the likes of Josh Dobbs, who was doing so well in Arizona, and that got traded to the Vikings,
You know,
played unreal in his first game, and then fell off a bit of a cliff. Tommy DeVito, social media phenom. I mean, the same story came in relief of Tyrod Taylor, who came in. I mean, DeVito was third string, came in, played really well in his first couple of games, and then had a similar fate. Then you had the like of Nick Mullins, who came in for Dobbs, Jake Browning, who came in for Joe Burrow. So I mean, it's been a hell of a year for backup quarterbacks.
it is like there's the commentators mention all the time. It is the year of backup. Some have been successful, some haven't, and you roll back to like DeVito, like on his 3 game winning streak, and there was people talking about like is there going to be quarterback controversy between Daniel Jones and like Tommy DeVito? You know,
No.
that's insane talk. Like that's a third string quarterback versus a first.
Yeah.
Like that's insane talk. But like Nick Mullins has been around for years. He
Yeah.
came back and he to steal a phrase from Pat McAfee, the pastronaut, Josh Jobs. He took his job, and it looked like the Vikings had found their footing. They're still in with a chance. They're the 8th seed. Um, so like another backup. I can't remember who's starting for the Jags this Sunday because Lawrence is out. But
That's a very good question.
there's another backup there. Um, and then we go to our team. Pickett went down with
Yeah.
his calf injury. Mitch Trubisky went in, stank up the joint, and
Yeah, pretty
then
much.
Mason Rudolph came out and he just put on a show.
Which nobody expected. I
No,
mean, you look at that game against the Bengals last week after the absolute disaster against the Colts. I mean, you and I had zero expectations of anything positive to happen last Saturday night. And they came out and absolutely blasted the Bengals. I mean, what happened there?
well, I think myself included, a lot of people forget that Mason has spent basically his whole career sitting behind Ben Roethlisberger,
Yeah,
and you could see in the way he played, he was making decisive throws. He was making
yeah.
deep shots. He was scrambling when he needed to. If you look
He was playing. He
back,
was playing with confidence, which I don't think Trubisky ever did. I don't think Trubisky ever threw a confident pass while he was there.
no, he didn't. And like, I don't know whether like Mitch just has like this lingering doubt from being a first round pick to being a backup in Buffalo to being a backup in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
You know, but there was no confidence behind his throws. You're absolutely right with that. Where like Rudolph was like my guy's there, he'll win, and he put the
yeah.
ball where he knew his guy could get.
He was coming
But
out. He was slinging it. I mean, George Pickens had a career day as well, which was
yeah,
just beautiful to watch. I mean, after all the struggles that he's had this season, and I suppose all the talk about his attitude, it was great to see him come out. I mean, he had his coming out day, really. That was the biggest game of his career.
he silenced a lot of people talking about him. Like there was a lot of people on Twitter or X, whichever you want to call it, who were against him after seeing his lackluster blocking for Jalen Warren, and
Yeah,
then he came out and had that career day. Suddenly, blocking for
he's the
teammates,
hero.
what? Like, no, that doesn't matter anymore. Look at that. Look, 2 touchdowns, like nearly 200 yards. Like,
Yeah,
um, so you're looking at like with the Steelers Seahawks, like you're looking at Mason starting Pickett. You can see in his recent interview, like he is angry, like he is mad. That like you can see, like someone asked him a question about like quarterback competition, and he shut that down. Like don't ever ask that question again, type of answer.
yeah.
And I don't blame him. Like he's hurt. Like and it seems that everyone forgot he had a phenomenal day. Like the 1 game removed from Matt Canada, like that game is completely gone from
Yeah,
most Yinzer's mind. And it's only now like, oh, Mason Rudolph,
that was the
Mason
first. That was
Rudolph.
the first game against the Bengals, wasn't it?
No. Oh, yeah, sorry, it was. Yeah, that was the first game. They started the game off, throwing the pass down the middle of the
Yeah,
field.
Fryermuth. I remember
Yeah,
that. I
that
remember
like,
watching that, going, "Oh, here we go."
yeah. So, I mean, like, he's not marked as an out so far. So I think the expectation is he'll dress, and if Rudolph struggles, he'll then
Yeah,
go in. And he's not 100% still. He had a similar injury in college. He came back after 26 days. College and NFL are different beasts.
yeah.
Like if Rudolph continues to play well, get to the point where you let Kenny heal up. Let him heal as much as possible because in that offense with those weapons, Pickett has the skills to do what Rudolph does. He just, he's been playing injured for a lot of the season.
And he hasn't really been developed either properly.
Yeah, that's the big one in Pittsburgh. Like post season or off season, we're like from the Steelers fan, I'm saying we're going to need to look for a new offensive line coach, new quarterbacks coach, and possibly a new defensive and offensive coordinator. Like clear house from Tomlin down, leave Tomlin as he is. Like, because a lot of veterans are still supporting Tomlin. TJ
Mm.
Watt's come out and always supports Tomlin, and he doesn't understand how guys, especially the younger guys, don't like listen and take in what he says. And you do forget that there's a lot of on the offensive side of the ball, Steelers. There's not many veterans. Like Roethlisberger was the last veteran when he left that room. When he left the room, Najee Harris was the most
Yeah.
experienced guy when he left the team. So that shows you how young that team is in terms of like locker room mentality.
I mean, okay, we had a fantastic game against the Bengals last weekend, and hopefully we'll have a similar performance against the Seahawks tonight. I mean, first of all, what better way to ring in the new year than watching the Steelers game? I mean, I'm just as soon as I saw the schedule come out and I saw the New Year's Eve game, I was like, happy days. That is my New Year's Eve sorted. But like, I don't think that the recent victory can really mask the fact that there is, like you say, I mean, the Steelers have to clear house in the offseason pretty much from Tomlin down. I mean, I would even go as far as having a look at the GM as well, possibly.
I don't think Khan is on the firing line. Like you look at like Omar, he's like he robbed the Bears. We got Joey Porter
Oh
Jr.
yeah,
because of Omar Khan. Like he
yeah,
gave them
that's a good
Chase
point.
Claypool. Like we got Joey Porter, like who
We
is
definitely came out on top of that one anyway.
he's basically a lockdown corner. He's like a rookie. You
Yeah.
know, there's talk like obviously there's talk of like who should be defensive player of the year and who should be defensive rookie of the year and stuff like that. And I've seen Joey Porter's name mentioned in some circles and some beat writers like outside of Pittsburgh that he could be defensive rookie of the year. But that we don't know how those yearly awards will go, um, and I'd say that's probably another like topic of like we could touch on quickly is like the yearly NFL awards, like
Well,
MVP, defensive player,
yeah.
offensive player.
That's. I'm actually. I was only thinking about this the other day and trying to think in my mind who the NFL league MVP can be, and honestly, like nobody comes to mind right now. No one really jumps out.
The only player like that jumps out to me straight away, like would be either Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey,
Yeah.
and like they're the two names that like really jump out at me. Like when I'm
But
looking at,
when you consider that the league MVP often perhaps unjustly is skewed towards offensive players. I mean, there's no real massive strong candidate. I mean, all things being equal, TJ Watt would win MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, I know we're slightly biased towards the Steelers, obviously, but my God, like the man is just a machine. 17 sacks for the season, probably going to finish up with over 20 sacks, you know?
if he's not on the field, Pittsburgh loses. We know that.
Yeah.
Everyone who watches football knows that. I mean, you're like he could MVP. He absolutely could. Defensive Player of the Year. He should. He could even win Comeback Player of the Year because last season he tore his pecs.
Mm.
So he could, but he's not going to win like three
No.
awards. Like, I mean, realistically, he should win the Defensive Player of the Year. He's currently first, 17 sacks. Um, Trey Hendrickson is a name that
Yeah.
does not get mentioned enough. He's one
Yeah.
behind Watt, 16. Like, he is a phenomenal defensive player. Um, the names that are being thrown around are like Micah Parsons, Miles Garrett, and then TJ Watt. And like a lot of places have put Miles Garrett as a front runner for Defensive Player of the Year.
No. That's just factually incorrect. I mean, if you're going by the best player and the best numbers, it's TJ hands down, like, and the biggest impact. You can see, like, he is the Steelers' heart and soul.
Yeah, and like there's a lot of talk on the socials about those yearly awards, and it's a popularity contest or it's a story-driven narrative, or like TJ could have 22 sacks, but because he doesn't make the playoffs, he's not in contention.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not taking anything away from the Browns. Like they've had a phenomenal season, but because they're going to the playoffs, and so are the Cowboys. So Parsons and like Garrett are being talked in higher circles than Watt is, which kind of, in my opinion, detracts away from the awards. The awards supposed to be like, what did you do for your team,
Mm.
regardless of whether you got to the playoffs? Not because one player can't bring you to the playoffs. Like it's a team sport. Like the Defensive Player of the Year award is an individual award. It's not where your team finishes.
And then if we look at the other, I suppose, annual awards. I mean, okay, we've touched a league overall MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year. Could it be McCaffrey?
You
Um,
could get McCaffrey. Here's a double-headed one. You could get McCaffrey, but you could also look at CJ Stroud for both
mm,
offensive player and
yeah,
offensive rookie.
Tank Dell if he hadn't
Tank
got
Dell
injured,
if you haven't
maybe.
got injured. Yeah. But I mean, if you're talking about offensive player purely, I'd say Christian McCaffrey could win that or should
Yeah.
win that. He's like the powerhouse. Like he's giving the Niners like that ability to win games. Like as I said earlier, he's causing defenses to like stack the box. If they see him lining up in the backfield, they have to stack the box, and that just gives Brock Purdy play action opportunities all day, every day. Yeah.
And then looking at the Rookie of the Years and the Comeback Player of the Year, who kind of stands out to you there?
I mean, comeback player of the year, you know, my vote is Joe Flacco. Like,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
actually that's a great shout. I mean,
like,
not necessarily coming back from injury, but more or less coming out of retirement.
yeah, coming from like the Jets to sitting on the couch halfway through the season to bringing as I said, the Browns
The Browns practice squad to the Browns starting quarterback.
and giving them their third playoff berth in a century, like
Yeah,
and looking well while doing it.
yeah.
Like
Looking well for 35, 36 years of age.
it's 39.
Oh, Jesus. That makes
But
it even more impressive.
yeah, old man Flacco. Like, I mean, like rookie of the year. I mean, no one off the top of my head has had a bigger impact as a rookie other than CJ Stroud. Like
Mm,
he got drafted, people thought the Texans will have to be a year or two just getting him under center, and he came out slinging.
yeah.
So much so he's got them at 8-7. They're third in the AFC South. They have a 53% chance of making the playoffs if they win out. No one expected the Texans to be in contention for the playoffs, and it just goes to show like they struggled when he was out with concussion for those 2 games. Like if they win out, they will cause an issue for whoever they face in the wild card.
Yeah.
I think he'll probably get that offensive rookie. And Bryce Young, people say my offensive rookie. Like if he has the skills, he has the talent, he just doesn't have the offensive line.
No, doesn't have the weapons.
Yeah, like and I kind of feel for him because he had his owner, the owner team come out and like saying they were originally going to draft CJ Stroud, but they decided last second to change to Bryce Young, and that's a big confidence hit. Like the guy's struggling, you kind of have to
Yeah.
say that stuff publicly. But yeah, I say Stroud for rookie of the year. So if he's rookie of the year, then offensive will be um, Christian McCaffrey. But then offensive rookie of the year. And I don't know who would take that. If can't really go to, they're not really going to give the Stroud twice.
No. I think Defensive Rookie of the Year could be a good shout for Joey Porter Jr. I mean,
Yeah, he's
what's the Alabama safety with Brian Branch?
oh yeah,
Was
I
he?
forgot about him.
Yeah.
I was
Or
hiring him for the
even
Steelers.
do you know actually now that it comes to me, Deron Bland, he's a rookie, isn't he?
He is now. He did set the record for most pick sixes, but he's kind of been like
Up and down.
up and down. He's like kind of got burnt a bit. Like
Yeah.
the Lions kind of made him
Whereas
look
you
a
look at
bit.
you look at Joey Porter Jr. and he's just, I mean, he is a shutdown corner to the point where he's a rookie and he's covering opposing teams' best receivers. That's just incredible.
The only thing that could go against Porter is he's the second most flagged cornerback in the league at the moment, but that's because he's a rookie. But
Yeah,
just completely forgot who else could be offensive rookie of the year. Puka Nacua. I forgot he's a rookie.
completely forget. He would not strike you as a
Yeah,
as
he's
a
playing
rookie
like
at all.
a wily veteran.
Yeah. Come here, before we finish up, I want to talk about the Super Bowl briefly, and
Hmm.
obviously I'm going to be over there in
Yeah.
Vegas, so excited. But like, give me Give me your prediction for matchups.
Um, the matchup, there's going to be matchups that I'd like to see, matchups that I think is going to happen. Like a matchup I would like to see would be like, this is out of like left field, would be Dolphins Lions. Um, just because it's too like it's a powerhouse offense
Yeah,
and a powerhouse defense. Um,
I don't see the Dolphins getting past the Ravens though.
no, that's what it's a like to see.
I don't see anyone at all getting past the Ravens at this
The only
stage.
team I can see who has a chance of getting past the Ravens is the Browns, and that's because AFC teams, as you know, AFC North teams, we play each other different.
Yeah.
Um, and you know what a story with that would be if Joe
Hmm.
Flacco beat his old team in the AFC Championship game. You know,
Yeah.
that would be a story to look forward to. Um, but I think Super Bowl, you know, it's going to be Ravens and it's going to be 49ers.
Yeah. I think ultimately the Niners will rally themselves and will fend off. I think Brock Purdy is just too good. I mean, you look at all the weapons that he has. I
Yeah,
mean, it's a to quote someone else that a quote to quote a quote that I saw on Twitter. It's an embarrassment of riches on offense for the 49ers, and you have Simi, Christian McCaffrey, Debo Samuel. It's ridiculous.
it is like you can't let those offensive weapons not get to like not let you get to the Super Bowl, and then you can't, you know, like lose games when you have like Bosa and Young anchoring
Mm,
your defensive line. Like
yeah.
you can't do that. And I mean, if they face off in the Super Bowl, I think Ravens are going to win 34-21.
Have a score prediction as well, and hopefully it won't be repeated the last time they played when the
The
lights
lights
went
went
out for
out.
40 for 45 minutes, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning by the time
Yeah,
the game finished. Yeah, Niners Ravens is I think what everyone's kind of calling at this stage. I mean, the line's such a fantastic story, but ultimately I think they're going to fall short of the mark.
but I would say one last one for Super Bowl, like the absolute out there possibility: Browns Eagles.
Now that's been a little bit ridiculous, I
I
think.
know it is, but like, I mean, they are the Browns are the Browns, and they will find a way to lose. But kind of got to give them a little bit of respect. I mean, you know, their coach Fancy is probably coach of the year. He's
Hmm.
probably going to win that award. But as much as I hate saying it, like Ravens are probably going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think so. It pains me to admit it as well, but they're just too good this year. And look, hopefully our Steelers will make it to the playoffs, but I don't know how far they'll get.
We just got to beat Seahawks first, and then the Raven. If the Browns, the problem is if the Browns win this week, the Ravens will not sit their starters because the Browns are still in a chance to take the number one seed.
Yeah.
So
Well, look, enjoy the game tonight. I'm sure we'll be giving out, or hopefully not giving out, but hopefully we'll be in good spirits. Hopefully we'll get the 2024 started off with a win. And look, always a pleasure talking NFL with you, man. And we'll talk soon.
yeah, looking forward to this game, Jimmy. Speak to you soon. Good new year, and here we go for a win.